Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back. Sorry. We took a week off. You know what? We really shouldn't have taken this week off, but when we committed to doing this podcast, we said, what is most important to us is that we are concentrated on production and ensuring that every single job gets out on time and incredible. And we just have those weeks where there is no stopping in sight. So sorry that we had a little pause here, but we have a great new episode, and I'm really excited about this one. The topic of today's conversation is embroidery, the lost art. And so I had to go find me a pro. Luckily, we have them here in the building. We're very blessed for that. So I'd like to welcome Kari to join us, who is an embroidery pro, very creative, both on the art side and on the physical side. So Kari, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to finally be a part of this.
So tell us about, first off, before we jump into the technical side, what drew you to the process or the art form of embroidery? Because, it's probably not often somebody says, what I really love doing, what I'm really into? Embroidery.
Yeah. No, for sure. I started here out just as a graphic designer. That was my first hire on. A year in or so, I started to really deep dive into this because I kind of saw an opening, and I felt like we definitely needed some more background in this to help our projects go off more seamlessly. I just felt like, let's get into it.
You dove in head first.
I've been reading nonstop. A lot of this I've learned on the fly. Talked to a few people outside of here, some partners that has given me some tips along the way. And now I feel like we're rocking and rolling.
So I'm going to lay out the categories, I guess you'd say, of embroidery, and then I'll let you comment on each one of them. But let me know if I leave one out. So we kind of have direct embroidery. And thank you for bringing some really cool samples today. Yeah. But everything that we have here is really direct embroidery. So this is hooping the garment and then putting it on directly on the embroidery machine. Correct. Start with that one.
Yes.
Right? So then from there we go into some specialty stuff. So there's actually specialties that we can do with a direct embroidery. So puff, metallic, all over different placements and unique styles. And then you have like patches, which would be, actually embroidering a piece of material and then sewing that on. Did I leave any category out?
Those are the basics, but then you can kind of deep dive into each one.
Okay, go for it. Let's start with just your main basic embroidery. Tell me about, first off, that very well is the process behind the art. Yes. Talk art, digitizing, and then we can get on press. Okay.
Yeah, so same as with screens that you guys have talked with before. There are certain minimums, max dimensions that you have to keep in mind. Hats in particular have a smaller dimension than a hoodie t-shirt would. So we do have to keep those things in mind, and then how skinny your lines get. So like on press, it can't be so small that doesn't even show up on the screen.
Is there a point in, say, Illustrator, for example, that you don't want to go beneath?
Yes.
What?
So lines, so you can have run stitches. Those are ones that would literally be a straight line.
Yep, I like that. It's cool.
And then a satin stitch is the one that jumps back and forth. And then the minimum for that has to be 0.04.
Wow.
Otherwise, it turns into a run stitch.
Okay. That's pretty tiny lines. So
it is very
cool.
Small.
All right, nice.
Yes.
I actually didn't know that, so that's cool.
And text also has to have a minimum height.
Okay.
Otherwise, that won't show up either.
What is the minimum height?
0.2.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah.
0.2 inches on that, or are we talking points?
Inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So once you have like the art set, what is the next phase from there?
Yeah, so those are the things I check for first, especially when we get art in. If I have to adjust it a little bit, I usually let the client know, because it might change it just a little bit. Usually no drastic changes if I do have to do that. But then I send it off to our digitizing team. From there, they actually create it into a stitch file.
Yep.
So they take all of the colors that I have in there, the line work, and then they organize it so it'll stitch well and properly. They send me a sew out back. I usually check that first before it even gets to our team here, because then I can see potential problems and then hopefully keep it from delaying our press here.
And so something I know, even for our sales team, that's like a misconception, is like, what is a digitizing file, right? Like, so basically the digitized file is telling where the needle to go down and then move to. Is that correct? Was that like a good explanation, or how do you like explain a digitized file?
Yes, so it is needlework.
Okay.
And each color does have its own position. So the digitizing file will then tell the machine, this color goes here, and it's in order too. So like the black's got to go first, then white, and if it's puff, the flat stuff goes first and puff goes last. So it kind of tells you how you need to set it up. Yeah,
it's funny, even, you know, most of the, you know, clientele that we deal with is professionals at doing this, but like telling like a you know, random incoming client, like, hey, you know, you need to have this file digitized. They're like, what do you mean digitized? Like, what does that even mean? Like, I gave you the file. It's a JPEG, you know, just like put it on the hat.
Yeah.
So that, how long does that take? Like, that's quite a lengthy process to do properly. I think there's plenty of programs and stuff that could just spit out a digitized file, but really the craft comes into like, what is the actual substrate, how is it going to sew, what lays on top, how close are the stitches, you know, all that. That's really like the craft behind it, right?
For sure. Yeah, I've been working with our account managers to let them know, like, especially when they have a hoodie and a hat coming in, but they want to use the same logo. I've learned and now tell them that, like, well, we actually need to get that digitized separately, because the underlay stitches, so your base, basically, stitches also have a base. A hat is going to have a different one than a hoodie, because hats curve, the materials are different, especially if you have a fuzzy hoodie. It's going to take more stitches to lay that stuff down before your top color goes on top.
That I'm learning something, Michelle. Yeah. We're totally like learning something new today. No, that's incredible. Is that t-shirt kind of, would that, you know?
Yes. So I brought a t-shirt with us, and this is actually one of our specialty threads. It's our frosted matte, so there's no shine to it.
Nice.
This is not very well known yet, but I love it. That's actually not shiny, and I have so many thoughts in my head already that I want to put it on.
Sweet.
But it's just a matter of like getting it out there. A lot of people don't know that this can come not shiny, basically. And
what makes that unique? Like, is it just like what the thread is made of, the composition or composure of the thread? If that's the composition. There you go. Thanks, Michelle. The composition of the thread is just the material, like the fabric or whatever. That's what it is. So the bases of them are pretty much the same. So we focus and carry mostly polyester threads. Those ones, they don't break nearly as much as like our metallic does tend to break more because of what's in it and the shine that goes into it, like the top coating basically. So with the frosted matte, it doesn't have that top coating that they put on it after. Yeah, I know. If you're out there suggesting or requesting a metallic thread, I promise you the person on the other side is terrified. But it does have, you brought one with, right? You brought some metallic stuff. I mean, it really has an incredible, you can kind of see it retail ready. It looks great, but it's very complicated to use. Why is that? Yes, so this one specifically actually is our super twist. So if you actually feel it, it's got like a texture to it. Whereas like our regular smooth metallic will still feel like our regular stuff, but it's more shiny than the regular stuff. It's cool. So that one I have found, we haven't used that a lot. And again, I feel like just because most people don't know it exists, like you can actually have a texture to the thread. It's very obviously like eye-catching, but it does tend to break more. So that kind of, but then we have processes where we kind of account for that. Like you slow the machine down a little bit more. You maybe use a second backing, stuff like that to try and make it run better. That's something else that I get often. People say, okay, I want to do the embroidery from here to here.
Yeah.
I want the whole hat. Why is that not possible? Let's get it out on the record.
Yep. So, and again, that comes down to max sizing. So our hats have a different hoop style than the t-shirts would. The t-shirts have a lot more options. I have some where you can go 16 inches wide.
Okay.
I have a hoop small enough to fit 2 inches, and then that's how we can actually hit our sleeves a little bit better than we used to.
Yep.
But with hats, the machine rotates. So the needles never move. It's the object that moves.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it can only rotate so far.
Yep.
So the maximum width we actually can go is 5 inches. And granted, that can get pretty big if you max it out completely.
It could be, but like there is a metal hoop basically that is holding it on the machine.
Yes.
And I think that's unless you embroider the hat, the actual panels first flat, and then sew them together. That is, a completely custom hat.
Correct.
That is really the only way to do that. And I think, that's oftentimes, people see that in retail and they're like, well, why can't I do that? And we're like, you can, you just need to maybe order 1,200 of them or something like that.
Actually the one behind you, the Ginger Man.
Yeah.
Where you can actually go on
to
the
bill. Yeah. Domestic options, have some limitations, but then, the big pros is you're not waiting 3 months for it.
Right.
And so we can get them done super fast, sometimes in just a couple days. But so you kind of have to weigh those options. If you have time, we can go totally custom. Your creativity is the only thing that's in your way. But if you don't have 3 months or a significant amount of time, then we're a little bit limited. But still, this is some awesome stuff. Moving on to probably like the most popular specialty would be like puff or 3D, right?
Yes.
Walk me through, how on earth is that done? No one, that's another like wizardry, right? Like it's like the puff.
Yeah.
How is that done? Talk about the process.
Yeah, it's actually simpler than you think. And most people, again, I guess wouldn't know unless you took your hat apart.
Pull it apart, yeah.
Yeah. So I have, actually I brought 3. So this one is all puff underneath it. I guess I don't know if you can pick it up.
Yeah.
But it does come off of the hat to give you that 3D look. So what's underneath here is actually a 3mm piece of foam. So before you put it on here, it's a little squishy. It's got some tension to it because you don't want it to totally fall apart when the needles are going in and out. But that helps you give the raised look. But puff also has its own set of minimum widths.
Yep.
Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
And complexity, because you really have to wrap that puff perfectly.
Yes.
And if you don't wrap the foam, you can kind of see it in areas. And like, again, I think that is really part of like, I do believe anyone could stick a logo inside of a digitizing software. That's clear. But how you're actually, wrapping and the mechanics of each and every one of those stitches is where the craft really starts to come in.
Yes. So if someone is requesting that, then I take a look at the logo itself. This is on the fairly skinny side. So this could, if we went any smaller, it really wouldn't hold up very well.
Yep.
Because you have to, the whole idea behind the puff is that it's kind of thick. It comes off of the hat. But once you start getting so skinny, then it's kind of like loses its
luster.
effect. Yeah.
Yep.
So I always have to make sure it's at a minimum width in order for the puff to even go off or go on top well. And then you also can't get small text either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, you just won't see it. You'll the foam underneath will be ultimately useless because the thread and the needle will come so closely together. It's just basically not, taking in any of the puff.
Correct. Yeah.
Now I'm happy that you brought some, I guess you'd call like mixed, where you're utilizing the puff and 3D.
Yes.
Really, I think the way that it was originally meant. That's a lot like specialty inks, like when we use high density or gels or, stuff, metallics and stuff, it's almost really like they're not meant really for your whole logo to be that. It's more meant for accents.
Yes.
So walk us through those. I really like, and that racing inspired one that Eric did is really cool. Yeah, walk us through that.
Yes, my teammate Eric designed this one, and then I just helped with the final touches for embroidery. But this is a mixed, what would you consider like almost mixed media?
Yeah.
But it's puff and flat thread. So, and this is actually fancy enough, the first time we've layered flat thread over puff.
Nice.
We haven't had a design yet where we really thought that would be possible, but we pulled it off. Yep. It looks great.
Looks great.
So yeah, this gives you the great like dimensional look of it though. You get like a shadow from the border, but then if you look at the side of it, you can see it coming off of the hat itself. Like,
yeah, it gives, you know, a Steve Jobs-esque how it ought to be, you know, kind of vibe to it. You know, like it's like that is how I imagine the graphic is supposed to look. It isn't supposed to be flat. It's supposed to have dimension to it. And the foam underneath the puff area really does a great job with that.
yes.
So the last one you have looks to me like regular old white thread. So why bring that one?
So this one's sneaky. So it looks white when you're wearing it outside day to day, but if you charge it long enough, this one glows in the dark.
And you go to the club, you will be glowing.
Yes. So this one was for fun. This was one where I was just testing out the specialty threads. So I thought a moon and stars kind of made sense to glow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do have pictures of this one where you actually see it glowing. It is true.
Yeah, Michelle layered it on top here. Now, I see that you are going over seams. Talk to me about embroidering over seams. Is that okay? Is that kind of a no-no? When do you say yes or no for that?
Yes, so embroidering on 6-panel hats is fine, really. Once you start getting into small text, then we kind of have to be careful where it's placed, because you might lose like the letter I in a seam.
Yep.
So then you might want to just like move it
So
slightly.
avoid high detail and seamed areas. Really, I guess it's like kind of a blanket statement.
If it's going vertical, then that's where you might lose it. And again, depending on the hat, some are a little bit smoother than others, or some have a more dramatic dip. Or you can pivot to a 5-panel hat, and then you don't have to worry about text getting lost.
Nice.
In a seam.
Well, this is awesome. So direct embroidery is really what we wanted to focus on today, but I'll love if you can do like a little lead into patches. We're definitely going to have to make it our own episode, bring you back, and because like we could lay the whole table out with patch style.
I've got a lot more over there.
Nice. But tell me about like why do a patch, when do a patch? Shouldn't we always just embroider the hat directly, or why are patches so big still?
Yes, so patches help a lot of times with the finer detail that some clients still want. There's many options, like, you know, the sublimated, there's all sorts of names for them, but you can do an embroidered patch where it is still the stitching, the threads, it still looks like this, but the way they do it and they're able to sew it before you put it on the hat allows them to actually get the smaller lines, the smaller text.
Cool.
And then get sewn on after.
Well, we'll definitely have you back. Let's do a full patch episode. Let's get like leathers and like sublimated patches. We'll get all that stuff. Maybe we bring Nick. He's kind of a patch guru as well.
Yes, Nick would be a good assistant.
Yeah, that'd be great. But thank you so much. Michelle and I definitely learned something today. I think we're definitely better embroiderers after this. Yeah. Hopefully you guys are too. And if there's any other questions that you may have for Kari, feel free to comment underneath, and you know, the videos or on socials, anything that you have to say. We are certainly listening. If you have you know, other topics that you'd like us to cover, I'm sure Kari would come back. So thank you very much.
Of course.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.